At 73 years old, Kevin Costner, the man who gave us Field of Dreams in 1989, Dances with Wolves in 1990, and John Dutton in Yellowstone from 2018 to 2023, faces a chapter darker than any script he's ever performed. His divorce in 2024, the collapse of his $50 million epic Horizon, and the abrupt end of Yellowstone have left his legacy shaken. For fans who grew up believing in his resilience, the tragedy is personal and profoundly heartbreaking. A Western dream built on his own fortune. By the time 2023 arrived, Kevin Costner, born in 1955 in Linwood, California, had already lived multiple careers: Oscar-winning director, leading man of Dances with Wolves in 1990, cultural juggernaut in Yellowstone between 2018 and 2023, and father of 7 children spread across 3 relationships. Yet none of that seemed to satisfy his restless drive. In 2023, he mortgaged his own property and poured $38 million of his personal fortune into Horizon, an American saga. He admitted to GQ that he'd rather risk losing his home than lose his artistic soul. The ambition was staggering. Originally envisioned as one film, the project ballooned into a 4-part epic spanning the years of the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. The saga aimed to chart the settlement of the American West, told through intersecting lives of soldiers, settlers, and outlaws. It was Costner's attempt to leave behind something greater than a television hit. He wanted permanence, an epic like Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, or Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. Horizon was supposed to be his magnum opus, the story only he could tell. But with ambition came risk. The budget for Chapter 1 swelled to $50 million, though Costner himself personally shouldered nearly 3/4 of that amount. At 68 years old, when most actors might enjoy comfortable semi-retirement, he gambled his financial security and reputation. "This is who I am," he told reporters in 2023, echoing a belief that art demanded sacrifice. He was not chasing box office, but immortality. Yet Hollywood, always unforgiving, would not meet him halfway. When Horizon, Chapter 1, premiered in June 2024, the numbers painted a bleak picture. Despite a Cannes premiere and relentless promotion, it grossed just $38.7 million worldwide against its $50 million cost. The red ink bled immediately. Costner's dream, built on personal sacrifice, collided with financial reality. To fans, it was heartbreaking, not because the film failed, but because of what the failure symbolized: a man wagering everything, only to face the possibility of losing it all. The sting of those numbers rippled beyond accounting sheets. For a man once known as a box office anchor, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves grossed $390 million in 1991, while The Bodyguard earned $411 million in 1992. The collapse of Horizon was seismic. Costner had gambled legacy, but the tables turned against him. As critics offered lukewarm reviews and theaters emptied, the saga's second chapter was quietly pulled from release. A titan had stumbled, and the heartbreak was only beginning. A phenom falls. The summer of 2024 was supposed to mark Kevin Costner's resurgence. Instead, it became a reckoning. Horizon, an American saga, Chapter 1. Underperformed spectacularly, grossing just $38 million worldwide against a reported $50 million budget. Reviews from critics ranged from lukewarm to dismissive, with Rotten Tomatoes listing it at barely 40% approval. The epic story that Costner envisioned as his career-defining masterpiece had, within weeks, been reframed as his most visible failure since Waterworld in 1995. the blow was not only financial. Horizon, Chapter 2, already completed and quietly premiered at the Venice Film Festival in September 2024, was pulled from U.S. theatrical release in early 2025. Distributors cited the poor performance of Chapter 1 as the reason. For Costner, who once commanded summer blockbusters with ease, the message was devastating. His gamble had not only lost money, it had crippled the future of his multi-film vision before audiences could even see it. It was not the first time Costner's name was linked with cinematic excess. Waterworld, which cost more than $175 million in 1995, was derided as a disaster before finding cult status years later. The Postman in 1997 fared even worse, cementing his reputation as a star willing to stake everything on impossible visions. But Horizon hurt differently. This time, the money was his own. This time, the stakes were his family's future, his home, his legacy. At 69 years old, failure stung deeper. Fans who had cheered him through Yellowstone, who admired his stubborn pursuit of artistry, now watched with heartbreak. On social media, some applauded his courage, others lamented his recklessness. But the overwhelming feeling was grief. Costner had believed in something so fiercely that he risked everything, and reality had punished him for it. The man who once symbolized Hollywood triumph now embodied Hollywood fragility. His faith collided with the cruel mathematics of the box office, and hope felt unbearably fragile. And as Horizon faltered publicly, Costner's private life unraveled too. In May 2023, his wife of 18 years, Christine Baumgartner, filed for divorce. By February 2024, the split was finalized, with painful court battles and headlines dissecting every dollar. He admitted to GQ that the moment left him broken. The collapse of his marriage compounded the collapse of his gamble, leaving him fighting battles on two fronts, one for his art, the other for his family. Divorce. Kevin Costner married model and handbag designer Christine Baumgartner in 2004, after years of on and off courtship. For nearly 2 decades, they built a family together, raising 3 children: Caden, born 2007, Hayes, born 2009, and Grace, born 2010. To fans, their marriage seemed stable, especially compared to Hollywood standards. But in May 2023, Christine filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. For Costner, then 68 years old, the timing was devastating, arriving just as Horizon demanded every ounce of his financial and emotional strength. The legal battle that followed became headline fodder. Christine initially sought $175,000 per month in child support, a figure that shocked even Hollywood insiders. In September 2023, a judge reduced the order to $63,200 per month, but the burden was still immense. In addition, Costner was required to cover 100% of the children's education, medical bills, extracurricular activities, and even hunting dues and car expenses. By early 2024, when the divorce was finalized, the financial strain was undeniable, but the greater wound was emotional. Costner admitted in interviews that he was broken by the split. For a man who had weathered Hollywood storms for more than 40 years, the collapse of his family hit harder than any box office failure. He had long prided himself on keeping family central, even as his career demanded everything. The pain of watching a nearly 20-year marriage dissolve was not just financial. It was personal, visceral, and inescapable. And yet, he remained determined. "I have to go forward," he told GQ in 2024, emphasizing that his children remained his priority. He still showed up at school events, still supported them through sports and activities, even as tabloids chronicled his exhaustion. For fans, the heartbreak was palpable. To see a man who once embodied strength, whether as John Dutton in Yellowstone or as the bodyguard in 1992's The Bodyguard, reduced to raw grief was profoundly human. It was Costner's most painful role yet, father holding steady in the storm. But even as he fought to hold his family together, another blow struck. Yellowstone, the series that had resurrected his career in 2018 and turned him into a cultural icon once again, ended abruptly in 2023. His character, John Dutton, was written out amid tensions with creator Taylor Sheridan. For Costner, it was more than losing a role. It was losing a home. Without Yellowstone, the anchor of his late career was gone, leaving him adrift just as everything else began to unravel. Yellowstone's end. When Yellowstone premiered in 2018 on Paramount Network, it was more than a TV show. It was a resurrection. Kevin Costner, then 63 years old, stepped into the role of John Dutton, the flinty patriarch of a Montana ranching dynasty. The series quickly became cable's most-watched drama, drawing more than 12 million viewers per episode by 2022. For Costner, it wasn't just a hit, it was a rebirth. After decades of mixed fortunes in Hollywood, Yellowstone restored him to cultural prominence. But in 2023, whispers turned to headlines. Costner was leaving the series. Reports pointed to escalating tensions between Costner and showrunner Taylor Sheridan. Creative disagreements and Costner's commitment to filming Horizon left little room for compromise. By season 5, Sheridan scripted John Dutton's death. Fans who had invested 5 years of loyalty suddenly faced the character's abrupt departure. For Costner himself, the exit was jarring. His most resonant role in decades had ended without the dignity of closure. The timing could not have been crueler. With his divorce finalized in early 2024 and Horizon faltering at the box office, the end of Yellowstone stripped him of his strongest anchor. Interviews revealed Costner's frustration. He claimed he had wanted to continue, but the scripts weren't ready. Sheridan, meanwhile, insisted the story had to move forward. For audiences, the feud was irrelevant. What they felt was loss. John Dutton was gone, and with him, the symbol of Costner's late career triumph. The heartbreak ran deeper than television. For Costner, Yellowstone was not just employment, it was a home. The Montana landscapes, the cast chemistry, the rugged themes of family and survival mirrored his own ethos. Losing it meant losing the emotional stability it provided during his most turbulent years. Fans mourned as if a real person had died. Costner mourned too. He hadn't just lost a character, he had lost the community, the grounding, the stage that had reminded the world who he was. But as the dust from Yellowstone settled, another storm gathered. In 2024, Horizon was hit with a lawsuit from a stunt performer who alleged she was pressured into an unscripted violent rape scene without prior warning or consent. Costner's team dismissed the claims as a bold-faced lie. Still, the accusations spread like wildfire. At a moment when his legacy was already fragile, the lawsuit cast shadows not only over his epic saga, but over his reputation itself. Behind the Horizon. In late 2024, Costner faced a crisis that reached beyond box office returns. A stunt performer filed a lawsuit against Horizon, an American saga, claiming she had been pressured to participate in an unscripted, violent rape scene during production. The alleged incident, she argued, lacked notice, consent, and proper safety protocols. For a project already bruised by financial losses, the legal action was a devastating blow. Horizon was no longer only about creative ambition, it was suddenly about accountability. Costner's legal team responded swiftly, calling the accusation a bold-faced lie. They maintained that every scene had been scripted, safety standards had been observed, and the performers' claims were false. Still, the headlines spread across The Guardian, Business Insider, and New York Post in 2024. In an era of heightened scrutiny in Hollywood, the optics were brutal. For fans, it didn't matter if the claims were unproven. The stain of association was enough to rattle trust. The lawsuit added fuel to critics who already questioned Costner's judgment. Here was a man who had poured $38 million of his personal fortune into a film that grossed only $38.7 million worldwide. Here was a man embroiled in divorce, exiting Yellowstone, and now facing allegations tied to exploitation on set. To admirers, it felt as though his empire, carefully built since the 1980s with The Untouchables in 1987 and Field of Dreams in 1989, was collapsing in real time. For Costner, the timing was catastrophic. He had framed Horizon as his legacy project, a Civil War epic to secure his place in cinema history. Instead, it became the site of controversy. The lawsuit didn't just threaten financial consequences, it threatened his reputation as a man of integrity, a storyteller who prized authenticity and honor. Whether the allegations prove true or not, the tragedy lies in perception. Horizon was supposed to immortalize him. Instead, it placed him on trial. But to truly understand why Costner risked so much, money, reputation, and peace, we must return to his roots. Born in 1955 in Linwood, California, the youngest of 3 sons, he grew up moving through more than a dozen schools as his father's job forced relocations. He was an outsider before he was a star. Those restless beginnings, coupled with setbacks like a shoulder injury that ended his athletic dreams, forged his grit. His past explains why he gambled everything on art. Before the fame. Kevin Costner's journey began far from Hollywood. Born on January 18, 1955 in Linwood, California, he was the youngest of 3 boys in a blue-collar household. His father, William, worked as an electrician for Southern California Edison, while his mother, Sharon, cared for the family. Because of his father's job, Costner moved through more than 12 schools across California before graduating from Villa Park High School in 1973. Each move left him feeling like an outsider, perpetually starting over. His first dream wasn't acting, but athletics. A promising baseball player, Costner saw his ambitions collapse after a shoulder injury in the 1970s. The setback could have crushed him, but it fueled resilience instead. At California State University, Fullerton, he studied business while dabbling in theater, graduating in 1978. During his honeymoon that same year, a chance meeting with legendary actor Richard Burton changed his trajectory. Burton encouraged him to pursue acting wholeheartedly, a spark that transformed hesitation into determination. The early years were brutal. Costner worked as a truck driver, construction laborer, and even gave celebrity bus tours around Hollywood Boulevard to pay rent. He landed bit parts in low-budget films through the early 1980s, enduring rejection after rejection. He nearly quit. But by 1987, he landed his breakout role in The Untouchables, opposite Sean Connery and Robert De Niro. 2 years later, Field of Dreams in 1989 cemented him as a star with both box office appeal and emotional depth. Then came his crowning achievement, Dances with Wolves in 1990, which he directed and starred in, winning 7 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. It was a phoenix moment for the man who almost gave up. Those early struggles, marked by instability and perseverance, explain why Costner later risked millions on Horizon. He had always gambled on himself. But the irony of his later years is stark. The grit that made him once triumphant now magnified the tragedy of his collapse. And as history has shown, Costner's gamble wasn't the first time ambition and control dragged him into peril. In the 1990s, he poured millions into Waterworld and The Postman, projects that turned into industry punchlines. The very traits that fueled his rise, ego, passion, control, also engineered his failures. To understand the current Costner tragedy, we must revisit the infamous flops that scarred his career long before Horizon, the storms of hubris that marked the fall of a titan. The fall of a titan. The story of Kevin Costner cannot be told without Waterworld. Released in July 1995, the futuristic ocean epic ballooned to a staggering $175 million budget, making it the most expensive movie of its time. Costner, then 40 years old, not only starred but exerted heavy creative control, even clashing with director Kevin Reynolds. When hurricanes destroyed sets in Hawaii and production delays mounted past 157 days, the project spiraled. Critics savaged it. Tabloids dubbed it Kevin's Gate. Costner's ego became the narrative. He had sunk $20 million of his own money into the picture and forced rewrites, edits, and reshoots. While Waterworld eventually eked out $264 million worldwide, its reputation as a flop clung like an anchor. 2 years later, in 1997, Costner doubled down with The Postman. Acting as director, producer, and star, he poured his faith into the dystopian drama. The result? Catastrophe. Grossing just $20 million against $80 million spent, it became a symbol of Hollywood hubris. Industry insiders declared him finished. For much of the 2000s, Costner drifted between thrillers like Dragonfly in 2002 and ensemble roles in Rumor Has It in 2005, far from his Field of Dreams glory of 1989. The same relentless control that gave him Dances with Wolves in 1990, winning 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, had now branded him arrogant, reckless, unbankable. Costner's ambition was undeniable, but unchecked, it had dragged him down. The irony is tragic. The traits that fueled his rise, risk-taking, control, passion, also engineered his falls. Waterworld and The Postman became cautionary tales whispered in Hollywood boardrooms. They foreshadowed Horizon, a project so vast, so personal, that it risked repeating the cycle. For Costner, ego was both his engine and his undoing. He soared higher than most, but when he fell, the crash was spectacular. But amid collapse and ridicule, Costner's children remained a constant. With 7 kids spanning nearly 4 decades, from Annie, born in 1984, to Grace, born in 2010, his family became both his refuge and his reason to keep pushing. In a bittersweet twist, he even cast his teenage son Hayes in Horizon, Chapter 1. To understand the heartbreak of his late career, we must look not only at the flops and risks, but at the family who bore witness to them. A family cast in the Wild West. In 2024, when Horizon Chapter 1 premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it wasn't just Kevin Costner walking the red carpet. 5 of his 7 children accompanied him, including Hayes, who starred alongside his father in the sprawling Western. Born in 2009, Hayes played a settler's son, his youthful presence a symbol of continuity amid chaos. For Costner, who had endured divorce, lawsuits, and creative collapse, this moment of family unity was profound, a glimpse of meaning beyond numbers. Costner's family history is complicated. He shares 3 children: Annie, born 1984, Lily, born 1986, and Joe, born 1988, with his first wife, Cindy Silva. With Bridget Rooney, he fathered Liam in 1996. His marriage to Christine Baumgartner brought Caden, born 2007, Hayes, born 2009, and Grace, born 2010. 7 children across 3 relationships spanning 26 years. Yet, despite divorces and scandal, he has often emphasized fatherhood as his true anchor. "My children have always been bigger than the movies," he told People in 2023. The photographs from Cannes tell a haunting story. Costner, at 69, smiling as flashbulbs capture him, flanked by his children, while critics already whispered about Horizon's box office future. Behind the glamour was exhaustion. Divorce court filings from 2023 had described him as broken. Now, surrounded by family, he projected resilience, but the tension in his children's faces suggested awareness. They too knew the empire their father built was trembling. Family became both solace and witness. His children saw his victories: Oscars in 1991, Yellowstone triumph in 2018, and his collapses: Waterworld in 1995, The Postman in 1997, Horizon in 2024. They became characters in his story, woven into the triumphs and tragedies. Hayes on screen, Grace on his arm at Cannes, proof that even as his career faltered, his family still stood beside him. It was bittersweet, love visible amid legacy's collapse. And yet, Kevin Costner refuses surrender. Even as Horizon stumbled, even as lawsuits loomed, and even as divorce stripped his finances, he pressed forward. By early 2025, he was in talks with Netflix to rescue the saga, hoping streaming would give his epic new life. His persistence, whether seen as stubbornness or strength, defines him. Costner still insists, "I do what I believe in." But for fans, the haunting question remains, how much heartbreak can even a legend endure? Still fighting. By 2025, Kevin Costner's resilience had become legend itself. Horizon had collapsed at the box office, Yellowstone was gone, and divorce had gutted his finances. Yet he pushed forward. Reports in February 2025 revealed he was seeking a deal with Netflix to distribute Horizon's future chapters, hoping streaming could bypass the box office curse. For Costner, the story was still worth telling. For fans, his refusal to quit became both inspiring and heartbreaking. He defended his decisions with unwavering clarity. "I do what I believe in," he told People in 2024. To him, Horizon was not a misstep, but a mission. He insisted that financial loss could not outweigh artistic truth. His words echoed the man who, at 35 years old in 1990, risked everything on Dances with Wolves, a gamble that won 7 Academy Awards. Now, at nearly 70, he was repeating the pattern, risking ruin in pursuit of vision. The endurance bordered on obsession. Critics called him stubborn, pointing to Waterworld in 1995 and The Postman in 1997 as lessons unlearned. Admirers saw strength, the same grit that carried him from giving celebrity tours in 1978 to winning Best Director in 1991. Costner himself admitted that humiliation was part of the job. "You don't quit because you're embarrassed," he said in 2023. His pain was visible, but so was his determination. Still, fans wondered, When does persistence become self-destruction? At what point should heroes rest? Watching Costner fight through collapse became both admirable and painful. He was not a man surrendering. He was a man refusing surrender, even if it cost him everything. Hope glimmered, but so did heartbreak. And so, Kevin Costner stands at the crossroads of legend and ruin. At 73, he bears the weight of failed films, lost love, lawsuits, and fading cultural anchors. Yet he continues, eyes fixed on the horizon, unwilling to stop. His story is not simply about collapse. It is about courage in collapse. To close his journey, we must see the heartbreak behind the legend. A man who won big, lost hard, and refuses to stop telling his story. The heartbreak behind the legend. Kevin Costner, born in 1955, rose from blue-collar California roots to become one of Hollywood's defining figures. He gave the world The Untouchables in 1987, Field of Dreams in 1989, Dances with Wolves in 1990, and The Bodyguard in 1992. He led audiences back to the frontier with Yellowstone in 2018, only to leave in 2023 amid turmoil. Now, at 73, his legend feels fragile. What was once aspiration and grandeur now reads as courage in collapse. His heartbreak is layered. Divorce after 18 years with Christine Baumgartner in 2024 left him shattered. Horizon, his magnum opus, stumbled, grossing just $38.7 million against a $50 million budget in 2024. Lawsuits cast shadows on his reputation. Even Yellowstone, the juggernaut that rebuilt his career, ended abruptly. Each loss compounded the others, painting a portrait of a man enduring one collapse after another. And yet, he refuses to stop. Fans grieve not because Costner is finished, but because watching his struggles feels intimate. They see the man who once embodied John Dutton, strong against storms, now weathering storms of his own. They feel the collapse as though it were personal. For decades, his roles mirrored resilience. Now, his life does. It is heartbreak in real time. And still, amid ruin, a spark remains. Costner keeps fighting, seeking streaming lifelines, standing by his children, telling stories nobody else dares to tell. His legend is no longer about perfection, but persistence. The tragedy of Kevin Costner is not that he has fallen. It is that he falls and falls again, and keeps rising. His story is unfinished, but its heartbreak is already eternal. Kevin Costner's story has always been about risk, winning 7 Oscars with Dances with Wolves in 1991, surviving the chaos of Waterworld in 1995, and reclaiming glory with Yellowstone in 2018. But today, at 73, that daring spirit feels weighted with heartbreak. Divorce, lawsuits, and failed dreams haunt his late career, yet he refuses surrender. Fans are devastated, not because he has fallen, but because watching him endure the collapse feels like losing a part of ourselves.